Hello everyone, this is Ron from My Tech Legion, and this is part of our review of DCM Storm Scout 2 Advanced Mid-Tower Case. And this is the part where we install our components one by one inside the DCM Storm Scout 2 Advanced case. And typically I would install a power supply first or a motherboard. Of course, you need to assemble all your tools first. You're going to need a screwdriver for, although there's plenty of toolless options here, such as the 5 1/4" drive base. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to install the motherboard standoffs, or if you don't want to use the adapter provided, it's really quite convenient. If you don't want to use this, you can also use a long nose pliers, but since they provide it anyway, I suggest using it. First thing to do, of course, is to determine the motherboard form factor you're going to use. It can fit a standard ATX motherboard, or you can fit a micro ATX motherboard. A micro ATX motherboard is more square looking, so it'll be run up to this height right here. While if you have a rectangular board, of course I'm simplifying these terms since we have plenty of beginners who want to get into computer assembly. So if you have a micro ATX case, it'll probably just go up to here, and you follow the rule, the hole index right here on the middle of the motherboard. It's very easy to follow. Each hole there has a letter assigned to them, and they provide 9 standoffs in total. I would have preferred if they provided one extra bonus one just in case you lose it, but either way, 9 with the adapter. So I'm going to follow my index now. I'm going to install a standard ATX size motherboard and proceed with my installation. Alright, I have my ATX standoffs installed, you see there, and the next step I'm going to put in my power supply, but first clear out all the cables. Make sure you route the cables in the back first out of the way so you can actually work in the main chamber. Especially this rear fan right here has a long cable. What you can do is find the routing hole here in the back or the one right here in the middle and just pass it through there so it's out of the way. And you have a clean work area right here, and all the cables are in the back. That's what you're aiming for. You want to assemble a system that has pretty much has as little cables here in the front as possible. So let's grab our power supply and test out what kind of power supply will fit at the bottom that will allow us 120mm fan installation, or what type can we install that won't. Alright, as you can see, there are ventilation holes at the bottom. So essentially what you will do is take your power supply. If you have a power supply that has the large fan, find that fan and point it toward the ventilation area. Now there are people who prefer mounting it on top. Of course, some case manufacturers actually recommend that, but what's the point of having a hole there if you're not going to use that ventilation? There's plenty of room anyway, so you can draw clearance. I can understand maybe if you have a tall, if you're going to leave the case standing on a tall carpet, well, it won't be able to draw as much air. But in case if you're going to put, if in the case of standard installation, you install it on top of the table, you might as well just install it with the fan facing downwards. Again, it has a separate chamber for drawing in air, because when it is installed with a fan facing upwards, it's essentially drawing the hot air from your GPU, and it's not as ideal as having it draw cool air from outside the case. Well, anyway, as you see here, we have installed an enthusiast class power supply. This is the Codemaster Sound Pro Hybrid 1000-watt power supply, and this is quite long since it is a 1000-watt power supply. This measures 180 millimeters, or 118 centimeters. Just verify there. It is indeed. So 18 centimeters long, and as you can see, I can only see the front two mounting holes for the front fan. In case you want to install a fan here for optional cooling, you probably want to install something shorter. So let's try out a 165mm fan here. Our 165mm long power supply, and you can see that it almost is touching that hole there, but let's see if it's possible. Let me find a 120mm fan here. And let's see. It's still quite tight, but it definitely is possible. It's pretty much touching that right there. So you want to find something that's 165 millimeters or shorter if you want to install a power supply rather a 120 millimeter intake fan in there. Of course, if you have a non-modular power supply such as this one, it will still be it will have to be routed out of the way, all the cables right here, so that the ventilation is not affected. Well, anyway, of course, screw in the power supply in the rear of the case by the screws provided either by your power supply manufacturer or the case. There's a couple of extra screws here that were not used on the motherboard. You can use that to kind of lock it in place in the back. Anyway, let's proceed with our motherboard installation now, and I'm going to talk to you about the different types of heatsinks that you can install inside the CM Storm Scout 2 Advanced. Before you proceed with the full installation, I want to make sure that your components will fit first. There's a clearance of up to 162 millimeters for a CPU height clearance according to Cooler Master. But I have a feeling that you can put in a lot more than that. I have actually placed here a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo heatsink, and you can see it's already right there on top. But I didn't screw in my motherboard yet, in case I need to take it out and replace the heatsink later on. And also, whenever you're installing in a mid-tower case, I recommend that you also install the heatsink on the motherboard before putting the motherboard in place, since there isn't enough room to kind of maneuver. But actually, in this case, you can do it later, do the latter, since you can actually remove this latch on the top and kind of free that, so you have room to maneuver your hand around the air, even especially the 8-pin power plug right here, which is very convenient. So I'm going to leave that unplugged, rather uncovered, till I finish my installation. And let me just grab the side panel here. See, I believe I have a few more millimeters of clearance. So if that is the case, I'm going to try installing an even taller heatsink and see if it can fit. Yeah, definitely. Looks like I have almost a centimeter more. And feel closely that the height is actually perfectly aligned with the start of the bump right here in the side panel. And actually, Cooler Master notes on their website that if you install a fans on the side panel, it could affect the CPU height clearance. But it looks like the side panel fans are well away from the at least a few inches away from the CPU cooler. So even if you have I don't think it's being affected even if you install a fan on the side panel at all, since you can see it's quite far from that area. Well, anyway, I'm going to grab a taller CPU cooler and test out how much I can fit in here. If I can fit a Fantex TC14PE or a Knockout NHD14. Of course, both of the largest or taller air coolers in the market currently. Before I proceed with the removal of the backplate here, let me just demonstrate to you the clearance afforded to you by the CPU cutout. You can see that the Cooler Master backplate here, the universal backplate, is a little bit touching the air, but of course that is manageable as long as the screw holes here for the motherboard mounting is clear out of the way. You can definitely manage it. I managed to do it in tighter spaces before, but as long as you don't obscure any of that holes right there, or screws or bolts, you're free to remove it and install your heatsink with the motherboard already installed. On the subject of installing 240mm radiator on top, it is possible. As you can see there, that it is impossible if you want to install a radiator inside with a fan inside as well. But if you install it with the fan inside, the case plate, the top case plate, and then the radiator outside, it is possible. There's still even about, let me just eyeball it here. It's about a 0.7 centimeters space between. I can just put in my fan between this fan here. Of course, you have to arrange it as an exhaust here on top, and you'll have to route the only issue with this is you have to route the cables right here, right at the bottom area, because you won't be able to install a fan here, because if they're routed here on top of that way. You can see, unlike other cases, the CM Storm Scout 2 Advanced has this area right here, so you can fit in. You can actually route the fittings in of the radiator here at the end. It took a bit of maneuvering. Let me just remove the camera here on the tripod and show you what it looks like on top. I had to maneuver it from the back like this with the pump in front, as possible. Of course, it's going to be exposed. You might require some maintenance once in a while, some fan dusting. If we're asking if whether you can fit in a push-pull configuration, unfortunately the handle prevents that. Unless you use a slimmer fan. Of course, fans are typically 25 millimeters thick, so if you can find something that's 5 millimeters thinner, you can work that out. But even with this one, it's possible if you're okay with this kind of installation. Of course, the top panel is pretty much impossible to put in with that. You can't lock it. You can just leave it on top, but it won't lock in place since the latch will be too far from the cover. So it will just look like that. You can just leave it exposed actually, but or you can buy. I believe there are radiator covers available in aftermarket shops, but you cannot use the cover provided by Cooler Master. Well, anyway, that's pretty much what it looks like. You can also put the radiator inside and the fan outside, although yeah, actually that is possible. You can do that as well, but in between them is the top plate of the case. And of course, I'm now going to try out a tall CPU cooler, like I mentioned earlier. For those asking, there is no 140mm fan mounting, unfortunately, so you can't install a 140mm radiator. All of this is essentially 120 in the rear, 120 on top, another 120 on top, 120 in the bottom, and two 120s in the front. So pretty much out of block if you have a 140mm radiator. Alright, we saw the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, which measures, and the Plus, they both are the same dimensions, measure 161mm tall, fitting the 162mm clearance of the Cooler Master Scout 2 Advanced case with room to spare. So here it is with the Fantex TC14PE, one of the tallest CPU coolers available in the market. It measures 171mm tall officially. So let me grab my side panel here and see if we can fit it and close it properly. And as you can see, it definitely is possible. With this area right here is actually touching because my RAM is sitting on top of my RAM, but it's perfect. It's 171mm tall clearance, and I actually routed my cable in there, so that bumps it up by a millimeter or two more. So that's 172mm at least, and it's able to fit that. And of course, it's still very far away from the GPU area and the 120mm fan mounting area. So even if you mount fans here on the side, it still won't encroach on your motherboard area. Oh, very good. We've been reviewing some cases lately that I've been overstating their clearance issue, but their clearance, CPU high clearance. So it is. I'm very, very happy that Cooler Master actually underestimated their CPU high clearance in here, since they didn't account for the side panel protrusion, and even with that, of course, it allows the installation of large CPU coolers with such as the TC14PE here with a fan that is slightly taller than the heatsink unit itself. As you can see there, let me just tilt it up so you don't doubt. There you go. See that it is definitely closed, perfectly snug. And of course, we proceed with our installation now, and time to install our video card. There's plenty of room to install a video card inside. Of course, you have to remove the plate cover first. They are reusable though, and see what it looks like there. They're quite solid. I would have preferred if Cooler Master used a perforated one for better airflow, but the good thing is that they're removable. So if you want more airflow, you can just actually remove the cover completely and leave it open. Of course, that will leave you more susceptible to dust. And also note that the thumb screws, like the side panels, they're kind of machined in, so using tools, so you might need a screwdriver to kind of pry them loose when you bought your case fresh. Well, anyway, there's plenty of room for something like a GTX 580. See here, you can just plug it in like so without any problems. About 2 centimeters of clearance here from the end of this video card to the hard drive cage here. But if you want to install something longer, such as the HD 6990, HD 7990, or GTX 690, even a GTX 590, you can remove the plate here. Although It will be difficult if you already have a heatsink installed, such as this one. So I made a mistake of installing it first before showing the video card installation. Well, anyway, there's 4 screws here. Well, luckily I have this tiny screwdriver here. There's 4 screws that you need to remove in order to remove the plate. And these are just regular screws, essentially. See there? And there's 4 in total. Of course, you'll lose the option of 120mm mounting option here. But then you're going to be able to install pretty much AG6990s or 690 in SLI even. You can, since there's plenty of space and room for you to work with. And let me just show you that. And a last screw here. So 4 screws total. It's not the entire cage that's removable, it's just the plate here that will collapse in. Actually, there's 1 more screw in the rear that I completely forgot. I completely overlooked, so let me just move that quickly. There we go. That's what it looks like. And now to try out the AG6990. I don't really need to try this part since you can pretty much just use your imagination, but let's do that here. Here we go. You can see plenty of room. Still about a few more centimeters of clearance there. It's about 9 centimeters more clearance. Unfortunately, you cannot remove the side panel or this or the bottom hard drive cage. If you want to mount a 100, if you want to mount the radiator in front, you'd have to use a Dremel to kind of drill these out, the studs in there. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to put in my 580 here, because I use a 580 for a test drive. And then I'm now going to show you how to install a 5¼ inch device in your drive bay, and also a hard drive and an SSD. To install 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch drives inside the CM Storm Scout 2 Advanced, you need to use the toolless drive rails that they provide. You get 7 pairs in total. And to use it, of course, on a 3.5 inch drive, all you do is find a mounting hole, find the connectors. The connector end goes to the right side panel away from you, and the handle here of the rail, this is the line of mounting hole, push that in, and the handle face is going to be facing the left side panel here. And once both are in place, just push it inside until it clicks. There you go. Now for 2.5 inch drives, it's a little bit more effort, since you will need to use screws. Use the screws that look like this in the kit. These are the, drop that. See here, they provide 10 of these. And so if you want to install more drives, you probably need to get more, or you can just use 2 screws per drive. Each of these caddies can hold up to 2 drives each, one on top, and this is what it looks like when something's mounted at the bottom. It's upside down. See here, you want to install, if you're going to install 2 in one adapter, you would want to install the bottom first, since as you can see with the mounting holes here, it will be obscured by the ones that goes on top, which has the screws on the side. So after that is done, of course, put the connector, and you also mount it so that the connector is facing this opening right here, so there's no problems when you're installing it. Take more rails here, just attach it to the side, mounting hole, and again the connector away from you, the handle facing you, and just slide it in, and of course go to the other side and plug in your SATA connectors. Just a quick note, this is what it looks like when you have 2 2.5 inch drives on the adapter from the other side. When you're looking for the connector, the bottom drive is protruding a few millimeters further than the top SSD. Of course, that is so that it to allow plugging of the connectors without obstruction. Unfortunately, you cannot install 90-degree angled SATA connectors in this fashion, because of the clearance issue with that. I suggest using straight through connectors. which really have no problems, as you can see, because there's plenty of depth available there. It's about 3 centimeters more further from the edge, and then 2 more centimeters from the behind the motherboard tray and the right side panel, which is protruded. So there's definitely plenty of room to store your cables in that area. To install a 5 1/4 inch external device such as the optical drive, you need to, of course, remove the driveway cover first. You need to pull that cover and just push in the driveway cover you want to remove. So you want to select it first. So if you want the middle one, for example, you want to just press the sides while pushing inward. You just pull it out, and you can put it back. Of course, make sure when you put it back to lock it from the top first. And the opposite, of course, is true when you're removing it. To pull from the bottom when you're removing it. Make sure that the lock, pull-less locking mechanism, is positioned in the open position. So just shoot forward, pop in your optical device. See if he's blocking the way there. Oh, no, just of course you have to watch it sometimes. This can be a bit snug on brand new cases. Here you go. Make sure once it's aligned, press the lock, and it's held in place there. There you go. And of course, just plug in your cables, and you're good to go. Alright, as you can see, we have a very clean build here. All the cables have a routing area to route them to, and store all the extra cables down here at the bottom, even though I used a non-modular power supply. And plenty of room to maneuver, and there's pretty much no clutter in this space right here. So let's check out what it looks like on the back of the motherboard tray before we proceed with our end of our installation. Actually, let me just put back the side panel here so you can see that it definitely can close with that large CPU cooler. And now let's go to the other side. Alright, this is what it looks like here behind the right side panel. As you can see, it is still surprisingly clean, even when all the cables dumped on this side. And of course, probably wondering if we can close the side panel. The USB 3 cable is the one here that's protruding. I also routed the VGA cable here, the PCIe cable. But as you can see, because of the extruded side panel here, that really won't be an issue. I can still close it without any problems perfectly, and it closes perfectly. And just now, of course, run our system, and so you can hear what the fan speed is like. I'm going to run it at maximum fan speed. You can judge for yourself whether it is loud, and also you can see what the LED fan looks like and the LED indicator in the front.